In the vast expanse of the South China Sea, power isn't always announced with gunfire. Sometimes it's signaled by runways carved into coral, flags planted on sandbars, and quiet outposts turning into frontline defenses. What's unfolding around Pagasa Island isn't just a territorial dispute. It's a slow-motion contest for control, where timing, geography, and resolve may decide the outcome long before the first shot is fired. What was once a remote, barely noticed outpost in the West Philippine Sea is rapidly turning into one of Manila's most important front lines against growing Chinese pressure in its sovereign waters. Pagasa Island is changing, fast. Backed by multi-billion peso investments, the island is undergoing a quiet but significant transformation. A newly completed runway at Rancudo Airfield now anchors the effort. Close behind are a sheltered naval port, an aircraft hangar, and a control tower, all nearing completion. Together, they signal a clear shift. Pagasa is no longer just being occupied, it's being defended. These upgrades are part of a broader national push to strengthen force posture, logistics, and surveillance across the South China Sea. Through a mix of military and civilian infrastructure projects, Manila is reinforcing its presence in the West Philippine Sea and improving its ability to monitor activity in contested waters. Over the past several years, the Philippine government has committed roughly 3.2 billion pesos to build ports and air facilities on two of its most isolated outposts in the disputed Spratly Islands. Of that, about 1.65 billion pesos went toward expanding Pagasa's airport, alongside a 300 million peso sheltered port. Another 1.08 billion pesos was allocated for a separate port facility on nearby Lawak Island. Most recently, the Department of National Defense released a special allotment release order dated October 14, 2025, totaling 61.5 million pesos. The funds are earmarked for expanded basing support systems covering phases 2, 3, and 4 at Pagasa under the Philippine Air Force. The message is unmistakable. Manila is hardening its defenses, and Pagasa is emerging as a critical staging ground in the broader effort to secure the Kalayaan Island group. The Philippines formally annexed Pagasa, also known as Thitu Island, in 1978, declaring it the country's westernmost territory. At just 37 hectares, roughly the size of 52 soccer fields, it might look insignificant on a map, but geography gives it outsized importance. Pagasa sits astride key maritime trade routes in waters Manila defines as part of its exclusive economic zone. In the context of escalating territorial disputes and intensifying U.S.-China rivalry, its location makes it strategically invaluable. A 2016 international arbitration ruling invalidated China's sweeping claims over most of the South China Sea. Beijing ignored it. Instead, China doubled down, building artificial islands, militarizing them, and maintaining a constant maritime presence across the region. That's why Pagasa, whose name means hope in Tagalog, is now ringed by Chinese vessels. Navy ships, Coast Guard cutters, and maritime militia boats often operate so close to shore they're visible to the naked eye. At times, Chinese militia vessels have been spotted inside Pagasa's territorial waters. Manila maintains that its effective occupation grants it full sovereignty within the island's 12 nautical-mile territorial sea. Despite the pressure, Pagasa remains the administrative center of Kalayaan Town in Palawan Province. It is the largest feature in the Kalayaan Island group and home to roughly 400 people, including civilians, soldiers, law enforcement, and government personnel. But it's a dangerous neighborhood. Pagasa lies within the Spratly Archipelago, a maze of reefs and islands claimed by multiple countries. Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, Taiwan, and China among them. Just 22 kilometers away sits China's military base on Subi Reef, equipped with gun emplacements, missile shelters, advanced radar systems, and aircraft hangars. Other fortified bases on Mischief Reef and Fiery Cross Reef are also within easy reach. From these outposts, China routinely deploys aircraft, ships, and unmanned systems to monitor activity around Pagasa and nearby features. China's rapid and large-scale land reclamation campaign began around 2014. 11 years later, Beijing now controls a network of hardened military bases that dramatically expand its intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance reach, and allow it to sustain forward-deployed aircraft and warships across the South China Sea. Pagasa sits squarely at the edge of those ambitions. While these bases could theoretically support an air defense identification zone, they are more often used to assert de facto control over fishing grounds and flashpoints like Scarborough Shoal and Second Thomas Shoal, known in the Philippines as Bajo de Masinloc and Ayungin Shoal. Both have seen a sharp rise in incidents, from ship collisions to dangerously close air encounters, with neither side showing signs of backing down. Against that backdrop, maintaining and strengthening a military foothold on Pagasa has become essential. The Philippine government has moved to reinforce the island with defensive infrastructure: a sheltered port, beaching ramp, aircraft hangar, Coast Guard station, and an upgraded airstrip capable of handling military transport aircraft. Once overlooked, Pagasa Island is now a linchpin, small in size but massive in strategic weight. Pagasa Island has become a vital launch point for the Philippines' defense and security strategy, giving Manila something it desperately needs in the South China Sea: strategic depth. The island acts as a forward buffer for mainland Palawan, shielding the province from direct pressure farther west. Palawan itself lies nearly 600 kilometers from Manila, making Pagasa not just distant, but essential. Its value comes from three key factors: its location in the heart of the South China Sea, its permanent civilian population, and its solid land mass, all of which strengthen the Philippines' legal and territorial claims. Under international law, Pagasa generates its own 12 nautical mile territorial sea, but it sits in an increasingly crowded and dangerous neighborhood. The island lies just west of Lawita Bank and only about 14 miles east of Subi Reef, one of China's most heavily militarized outposts. Security analysts warn that as air operations increase around Pagasa, so does the risk of dangerous encounters between Philippine and Chinese aircraft. That risk is growing fast. China has built 7 fortified outposts across the Spratly Islands, forming a vast network of man-made islands covering roughly 3,200 hectares. As of 2025, Beijing continues to expand and militarize these bases. Several now host fully operational naval and air facilities, including long runways capable of supporting advanced fighter jets and heavy bombers. Fiery Cross Reef, Subi Reef, and Mischief Reef stand out as the most strategically significant. Fiery Cross and Subi each have 3,000-meter runways, while Mischief Reef has cleared space for future runway construction. Together, they allow China to project air power deep into the South China Sea and potentially threaten other claimants, including the Philippines, Vietnam, and Taiwan. These airstrips aren't just symbolic. They enable the deployment of high-end aircraft, including nuclear-capable bombers, dramatically extending China's operational reach across the region. The militarization of the Spratlys has sharply raised tensions. For the Philippines, backed by the United States, China's claims are being openly challenged. Beijing, however, insists the area is a legitimate extension of its territory, citing so-called historic rights that international tribunals have already rejected. Against this backdrop, Manila is moving to reinforce Pagasa and other key features. New troop deployments and infrastructure projects are part of a broader effort to harden its presence and prevent further encroachment. Funding has already been set aside this year for both civilian and military projects, including the development of a small airport, an investment that also creates jobs for the island's residents. But defense is only part of the mission. From Pagasa, Philippine forces are also watching closely, tracking Chinese military movements, monitoring activity from nearby bases, and making sure no new unlawful territorial grabs go unchallenged. In a region where inches of land and minutes of flight time can shift the balance of power, Pagasa Island stands as a small outpost with an outsized role, and one the Philippines can no longer afford to overlook. That urgency spiked in April, when China Coast Guard personnel grabbed international headlines by briefly planting a Chinese flag on Sandy Cay, a tiny sandbar just over 3 kilometers from Pagasa Island. The move was symbolic, but the message was unmistakable. China was testing boundaries. The incident reignited calls inside the Philippine government to fast-track Pagasa's defensive upgrades. Some officials were blunt: time is running out. A stronger, better-equipped Pagasa, they argue, could help Manila blunt, or even block, China's expanding footprint at nearby Subi, Mischief, and Johnson Reefs, all of them artificial islands built and fortified by Beijing. Looking ahead, Pagasa could become more than just a defensive outpost. It may eventually serve as a platform for projecting military power, including hosting advanced unmanned systems. Philippine planners are closely studying lessons from Ukraine, particularly how drones can shift the balance against a larger, better-equipped force. For now, Manila is moving carefully. While the Philippines regularly trains with allies like the United States, Japan, and Australia, no joint military activities are conducted on or around Pagasa itself. Officials say that restraint is deliberate, part of a broader effort to avoid triggering further escalation with China. Even so, the military presence on Pagasa is only one piece of the strategy. What truly sets the island apart is that it's the only feature in the area with a permanent civilian population, a fact Manila consistently highlights to reinforce its sovereignty claims. To sustain that presence, the government has offered incentives for Filipinos to settle there, including subsidized food, housing, education, and healthcare. Despite its isolation, nearly 300 kilometers west of mainland Palawan, the effort appears to be working. Meanwhile, across the waters of the West Philippine Sea, the Philippines and the United States are strengthening defenses closer to home. On Palawan, several joint military facilities have been developed to counter China's growing network of bases surrounding Manila's maritime zones. One of the most important is Balabac Island. Under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, Balabac became one of 4 new sites announced in 2023, alongside Naval Base Camilo Ocias, Lalo Airport in Cagayan, and Camp Melchor de la Cruz in Isabela. At the heart of the Balabac project is a new 3-kilometer runway, built for both military and civilian use. Balabac already hosts one of the Philippine Navy's most strategically important naval stations, positioned at the country's western edge. The base is designed to deter foreign surveillance and monitor activity in the southwestern approaches to the Philippines. Its location is no accident. Balabac sits near the Balabac Strait and within reach of China's military outposts in the Spratlys. It's also close to Mischief Reef, a disputed feature that lies well within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, making it a critical vantage point in ongoing territorial disputes. Beyond geography, Balabac plays a growing role in day-to-day naval operations and serves as a cornerstone of the U.S.-Philippine defense partnership. Together with Pagasa, it forms part of a widening defensive arc, one designed not to provoke conflict, but to make clear that incremental advances and symbolic gestures will no longer go unanswered.